Hello, my name is Jones, and today we are going to look at the anatomy of the female reproductive system. Okay, so we are looking at the subject of integrated reproductive health, and in our first lesson, we defined what IRH is all about. Okay, and the components of IRH. Apart from that, we looked at the definition of terms, and we also looked at abbreviations that are used in IRH. So it's important before you come to this lesson that you will have watched those things. Okay, so the anatomy of female reproductive system. The female reproductive system comprises of the external genital organs and the internal genital organs. Okay, so it is important for the student nurse to understand the anatomy of the female reproductive system so as to understand obstetric and obstetric nursing. So the anatomy of the female reproductive system here has the sagittal view, okay, of the female reproductive system. It has also the posterior view and it has the inferior view. Okay, so amongst these, it's also important to note within your program which ones you can be asked to draw, okay, in terms of preparation for the exam. But it is important that you appreciate this anatomical view of the female reproductive system from all these angles. And when writing the diagram, it's important that you have the title of the diagram, you have the labels as they have been shown without showing arrows, because in science, when you're showing arrows, it's something going in or something going out, depending on the position of the arrow, the way it has been. So these views that we have tried to show of the anatomy of the female reproductive system are important to make you understand the structures that are associated with the birth canal. So you understand their position so that you can understand these diseases that can be found in integrated reproductive health. Okay, so when you talk of external genital organs, we have the external organs of the female reproductive system. We have the mons pubis, the labia majora, the labia minora, and the clitoris. So these are the external outside. Right? So these are the external organs of the female reproductive system. Then other things that are within the external include the frenulum, vestibule, and the perineum. Okay, so they form the external genital organs. Okay, so mons pubis, labia majora, labia minora, clitoris, frenulum, vestibule, and perineum. Okay, so other things also that you also need to understand or appreciate on the external genital organs are the Bartholin's glands, the prepuce, and the foresheet. Okay, so this diagram necessarily tries to put across these external genital organs that I've just mentioned. Okay, so the location of the vestibule, the clitoris, the mons pubis, labia majora, the prepuce of clitoris, labia minora, urethral orifice, the hymen, okay, the perineum, the anus, and the vaginal orifice. So these are the external organs of the reproductive system. So as a group, these structures that surround the openings of the urethral and vaginal are called the vulva or uh, uh, pudendum, and is derived from the Latin word meaning covering. So vulva. So as a group, these external organs are called vulva or pudendum. Okay, so mons pubis, this is the fatty rounded area overlying the symphysis pubis and covered with thicker coarse hair. Okay, so thick coarse hair, we're talking of an adult here. Okay, then Rabia Majora. Rabia Majora run posteriorly from the mons pubis. They are the two elongated hair covered the skin folds. They enclose and protect other external reproductive organs. Rabia minora, these are two smaller folds enclosed by the labia majora. They protect the opening of the vagina and the urethra. Anteriorly, the rabia minora form the prepuce and the frenulum of the clitoris. Posteriorly, the labia minora blends with the labia majora and the perineum to form the foreshape. Vestibule. The vestibule consists of the clitoris, urethral meatus, and the vaginal introitus. The clitoris is the short erectile organ at the top of the vaginal vestibule whose function is sexual excitation. The urethra meatus is the mouth or opening of the urethra. The urethra is a small tubular structure that drains urine from the bladder. The vaginal introitus is the vaginal entrance. Okay, so internal genital organs, they are the uterus, the ovaries, okay, the fallopian tube. Okay, so that diagram just tries to portray the inside. We've talked about the external organs. Okay, so the vulva, okay, talking about the group of external organs. So now internal genital organs, we have the uterus, the ovary, the fallopian tubes there. Okay, so this diagram is there to make you appreciate the internal organs, okay, that can be there within the reproductive system, okay, and also it shows the layers of muscles, okay, of the uterus, okay. So we have outside in the perimeter we have the perimetrium, and then at the middle we have the muscle myometrium, and then inside there we have the endometrium. Okay, so the fetus has got a neck there, so where we find the cervix, okay, and then the fallopian tubes. Okay, so here is another flat view that tries to show the uterus, the ovary, okay, fallopian tubes, okay, and the uterine wall. Okay, so this is just for us to appreciate these internal organs. So the internal organs of the female consist of the uterus, vagina, fallopian tubes, and the ovaries. So the uterus is a hollow organ about the size and shape of a pear. It serves two important functions. It is the organ of menstruation, and during pregnancy, it receives the fertilized ovum, retains and nourishes it until it expels the fetus during labor. So that is the first function. Then location, the uterus is located between the urinary bladder and the rectum. It is suspended in the pelvis by broad ligaments. Okay, so we have two divisions of the uterus. The uterus consists of the body or corpus, fundus, cervix, and the isthmus. The major portion of the uterus is called the body or corpus. The fundus is the superior rounded region above the entrance of the fallopian tubes. The cervix is the narrow inferior outlet that protrudes into the vagina. It is about 3 to 5 centimeters in diameter and about 1 to 3 centimeters in length. The isthmus is the slightly constricted portion that joins the corpus to the fallopian tube. Three walls of the uterus, the walls are thick and are composed of three layers, that is the endometrium in the inside, then the myometrium in between, and then the perimetrium. Okay, so the endometrium is the inner layer or mucosa. A fertilized egg burrows into the endometrium, okay, this we call implantation, and resides there for the rest of its development. When the female is not pregnant, the endometrium lining sloughs off about every 28 days in response to changes in levels of hormones in the blood. This process is what we call menses, okay, or menstruation. So the myometrium is the smooth muscle component of the wall of the uterus. So these are smooth muscle fibers are arranged in longitudinal, circular, and spiral patterns and are interlaced with connective tissues. During the monthly female cycles and during pregnancy, these layers undergo extensive changes. The perimetrium is a strong serous membrane that coats the entire uterine corpus except the lower one and the anterior surface where the bladder is attached. The adult uterus is about 7.5 centimeters in length and 5 centimeters wide, and its thickest part that is about 2.5 centimeters in diameter. Before the onset of menstruation, its length ranges from 2 centimeters to 5 centimeters. The weight may vary from 50 grams to 80 grams. The non-pregnant uterus can hold only about 5 mils of fluid. Okay, so when you see menstruations, that is almost the amount of mils that may come. So the endometrium during pregnancy is called a decidua. The muscles of the uterus have a great capacity to increase both in number and in size. Okay, that is of up to 500 times its normal size during pregnancy. It increases gradually in size from the first trimester through the second trimester and up to the end of the third trimester. It then contracts and expels the fetus at the time of labor and childbirth. Vagina. The location is that the vagina is in the thin-walled muscular tube long leading from the uterus to the external genitalia. It is located between the bladder and the rectum. It is made up of fibromuscular layer and it is lined with mucous membranes and covered by striated squamous epithelium, which is arranged in rugae. The posterior wall is about 8 to 10 centimeters in length and the anterior wall is about 6 centimeters in length. The upper part of the vagina is referred to as the vault. Okay, second function here, the vagina provides the passage for childbirth and menstrual flow. It receives the penis and semen during sexual intercourse. Fallopian tubes. Location. Each tube is about 10 to 12 centimeters long and extends medially from each ovary to empty into the superior region of the uterus. The function, the fallopian tube transports ovum from the ovaries to the uterus. There is no contact of fallopian tubes with the ovaries. Description. Fallopian tubes are also called the oviducts. They extend out from the uterus like arms, reaching for the ovaries, which are positioned near them. Each tube has 2 openings. One opening connects to the uterus. The other opening is larger and wider and has a number of finger-like projections all around it called fimbriae. The fimbriae lie near the ovary of the same side and pick up the ovum at the time it is released from the ovary, and this process we call ovulation. This process we call ovulation. Macroscopic hairs are called cilia line the inner side of the tube and help in propelling the ovum towards the uterus. Each tube is about 10 to 12 centimeters long. Okay, then the width varies at different parts along the length, being more towards the ovarian side and thinner but more muscular towards the uterine side. So inside the fallopian tubes we have the cilia, and then near the ovary we have the fimbriae, fingers. Okay, so finger-like things so that pick the ovary. So it is widest part, that is the ampulla, varies next to the its widest part, the ampulla, lies next to the fimbria, and importance its importance lies in the fact that fertilization of the ovum by the sperm usually occurs in this region. Okay, that is in the ampulla. Okay, so it is found near the fimbria. Okay, the fimbria is the one that collects the egg. Okay, and lies in fact that its importance is that fertilization mostly happens in the ampulla. Okay, so the widest part and the ampulla lies next to the fimbria. So the isthmus is the portion of the fallopian tube just after the ampulla, and it then followed by the interstitial area. The point at which the fallopian tube enters the uterus is called the cone of the uterus. Ovaries. The two ovaries are situated on either side of the uterus. They are the female sex gonads and are responsible for the release of a mature ovum every month of ovulation. They are also the chief producers of the female sex hormones estrogen and progesterone. The ovaries are pinkish white in color and roughly oval in shape, being 3 centimeters in length, 2 centimeters in breadth, and 1 centimeter in width approximately. Each ovary has an outer thick lining called the cortex and an inner part called the medulla. During the reproductive life, that is from puberty to menopause, the cortex contains numerous Graafian follicles at different stages of development. Every month, a Graafian follicle in one of the ovaries matures, matures and releases. Okay, so every month, a Graafian follicle in one of the ovaries matures and releases an ovum. This phenomenon is called ovulation. During a woman's lifetime, only about 400 follicles reach maturity. So a woman attains menopause when the number of follicles in her ovary decreases below a critical level. The ovaries shrink in size and become whitish in color. They also secrete a lesser amount of estrogen and progesterone. So, in summary, we have been looking at the female reproductive system, and we have expanded some of the functions of the female reproductive system. We've looked at the structure of the female reproductive system. Okay, we have looked at the external parts of the female reproductive system. Okay, and we mentioned the parts that are found within the external part of the female reproductive system. Okay, so we have mentioned those, and we have also shown the diagrammatic representation of the external organs of the female reproductive system. Then we have also added some details about these parts of the female reproductive system. Okay, so these are some of the things. Then we discussed the internal genital organs. Okay, and we have some diagram illustrations of the location of these organs. Okay, so it's important we know like the detail apart from the just location, so the detail about each and every part of the organ. So we try to amplify that within the lesson. Okay, so fallopian tube, and we have mentioned some of the many points as we were discussing the structure. So that is the summary of it. So male reproductive organ. In another series, we are going to look at this one. Now, yes, we're going to look at the male reproductive system and also show some diagrams so that we appreciate the parts that are important in the integrated reproductive health system or topic. So that is the lesson. So our next lesson will be on menstruation. So thank you very much for your concentration on this topic. So keep on studying as we will be coming back to look at menstruation in the next topic.